I'm Paulie.
I'm GP, and
And
this is the happy class.
so there's a couple of things. I'm not necessarily a sloppy eater. Occasionally, maybe it's not necessarily the eater
It
themselves, it's the food. However, I will say that what I have learned over my time being married is marriage is essentially trying to stay happy with somebody and not murder them with because of how loud they're chewing. That's that's and I think that more comes directly at me because there are times where I have been caught chewing loudly, and it's either a look or an informational. You were chewing really loudly with a smile, and immediate embarrassment, shame, regret, and looking to find a closet that you can go and eat that
hiding.
BLT sandwich in.
Is there a quiet way to eat carrots and celery?
Well, see,
Mm.
now you're getting into ASMR. That's a whole whole different conversation.
Okay. All
See,
right.
here's so
That's
there's ASMR is really interesting to me actually. When I was a kid, um, I used to, my mom, I used to
well, we
have,
got to go slower here. We have a it's not just the
we,
two of us. We do have an audience. We're got it.
it's true.
ASMR.
Yeah, ASMR.
Yep. Means
Oh, so ASMR is
mm.
I'm gonna Google real quick. I'm gonna
Oh.
cheat.
It's one of those.
I'm
It's one of those things where it's like, so what does GP really mean?
it so it, ASMR. I'm googling it because I wanted to make sure I got it right. So it's autonomous sensory meridian response, right? Um, Essentially what it is based on uh ASMR is based on certain sounds, certain touches, certain sensory things will kick off tingles within your body. And people can feel the tingles almost like a brain like sensation, or you can feel it tingling like down your spine and stuff like that. So when I was a kid, I used to do this thing where I would ask my mom, I'd say, can you do the line down my back? And she would just trace her finger down my spine, and it would put me in this zone, just
Happiness zone.
completely, not a care in the world, not even present, just tingling and zoned out.
How
And
old were
over,
you?
oh God, I mean, would have been a child, would have been 5, 6
Got
through
it. Got it.
10, 11.
I'm just trying to go to what kind of, situational happiness,
Yeah,
time
yeah,
period, kind of.
yeah. And so over time, to me, I didn't know what it was. It was just the line down my back. That's just what it was called. And it's funny, I do, like, at bedtime I do the same with my son. He's like, can I get scratchies? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I just lightly rub his back, and it sends him off into a completely different planet, and he just zones off to sleep. Like, it just totally levels him out. Um and I started discovering this stuff on YouTube and everything called ASMR, and a lot of the ASMR is, they have these high-end microphones. We're talking,
More high end than mine?
we're talking double-ended microphones on this side, so they can do this, and you'll hear it go back and forth in stereo. So some people will do stuff like, they'll eat. You talk about carrots and celery. They'll eat carrots and celery right next to the mic, and you get the crunchy sound and the chewy sounds and everything else. And that's like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Ah.
I can't do that. But some people will whisper into the microphone, and they'll whisper on this side and they'll whisper on that side. And maybe they're whispering a meditation. For some people, they set up these elaborate things where it's like you're like getting a haircut, or um maybe getting like a massage or a facial or something like that done. If you jump onto YouTube and you just type in ASMR, the world will be your oyster. You will find so much stuff in there. And so at nighttime I have really bad insomnia, horrific insomnia. And sometimes at nighttime I will throw on an ASMR on YouTube on my AirPods, and it will be just enough to like kick off some tingles and send me off to sleep. It's it's amazing. But when I was a kid,
Are
I
any
didn't.
of them, I mean, are any of them done like help you sleep? Is there
Oh
keyword
yeah,
or okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Seriously, like
All right. No,
um, in
I'm a
in
novice here.
actual
I'm learning.
in actual fact, within ASMR, you have there's the send you back to sleep people, and there's the send you off to sleep people, right? So trouble falling asleep, or you woke up, as I did this morning at 2:30 when my brain went, "Hello, it's time to wake up."
Yeah.
And and then it's like, "Oh, you woke up. Let's get you back to sleep," you know. But as I said, it, and it gets crazy, and then there's even parodies of it. There's some where you have these very beautiful Eastern European models with an extremely expensive car, and they'll get their nails and they'll tap them on the wheels, and they'll say Bugatti or something like that, or Lamborghini or something. And then you get the guys that do that, but they're doing it on like you know, they're doing it on a Ford Focus. So, and they split the clips up. It's hilarious because you'll get this beautiful model being like Bugatti, and then the guy will be like Ford Focus. It's quite
Yeah.
funny. So it's ASMR is a whole. It's not a. I won't say it's a whole new world because it's been around a long time. Just as a kid growing up, I didn't know that the line down your back was actually ASMR, and not everybody has it. Not everybody. It's just one of those things. Some people ASMR will trigger them, and
So what percentage you used one of the classics, I assume, in this. I'm just making that up because they don't know anything. That fingernails down the chalkboard.
mm-hmm.
That's probably near universal as far
Yeah,
as I'm. I mean, having been a kid when there were chalkboards,
yeah, yeah, of
people did
course.
it, and everybody cringed in the room. I mean, maybe there was
Mm-hmm.
one person who didn't cringe, but pretty much
Yeah, yeah.
everybody's got that one.
Or sometimes the chalk just stuck and went eat, and everybody
Oh yeah, yeah,
recoiled. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. What do kids do now when they don't have any of this experience? How do you? They're not going to be able to say fingernails on a whiteboard. That doesn't work.
What are they gonna do?
How are they going to make
It's
that's a universal for a certain age group. We all know what that cringe feels like.
yeah,
We're done talking, right? We've
yeah.
totally conveyed the message. We'll have to get a kid on this show, and you'll
I
have to
know.
remember to ask them. You'll have to get a chalkboard. That's a whiteboard. I don't know if I have it. I used to have a chalkboard. I think we
Do
lost it.
you know what's funny actually is speaking of chalkboard, two things was my son just turned 3 yesterday, and we picked him up an easel at IKEA. And on one side, it's a whiteboard, and you can get a roll of paper and he can color. But the other side is actually a chalkboard. But with my daughters,
With the colored chalks so they can draw and kind of stuff like that.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, with my daughters, years ago, I got some of the chalkboard paint, and we had like this little booth that we would that was the dining area, and I covered it in chalkboard paint, and I would just give them so they would be eating dinner and just drawing with their stuff. It wasn't the same as a chalkboard, but I think you touch on something that is quite funny. Is that's just one example of phrases that are universal that may be lost over time or may not apply. Right? When you say nails on a
Or
chalkboard, a
yeah,
generation's going to say, "What's a chalkboard?"
yeah.
You know,
Hopefully they'll
what's
still have nails. Okay. Oh,
or um, landline. My my kids will have no understanding of what a landline is. Have you ever seen that YouTube video of the kids? They're like teenage kids, and the parents are like, "Here you go, make a phone call,"
yeah.
and they have a rotary phone and they have some of their thinking, and they're talking out loud. It's if you want to talk about like user research and stuff like that, they're thinking, like they pick it up. They just pick up they don't listen for a dial tone. They just pick it up and they just start trying to push numbers, and then they're wait, how do we, you know,
How does
explaining to
this
them
work? Yeah,
how to use
yeah,
a rotary phone.
yeah. That's why old movies are around, is to educate the young
Yeah.
on history. You were also bringing up one of my favorites, which is uh, the commonly used and understood phrases or words
Hmm.
whose
Yeah.
origins, okay, explain why the phrase is there and works, but has absolutely no meaning. One of them I know everyone uses that uses email is there's a thing called CC.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
don't even know what CC means, okay,
Yeah.
most of them. So if you say, do you know what it means? They go, nah, I don't know. It means carbon copy.
Hmm.
And they
Yeah.
look, that's that blank stare you were referring to. It's like the deer in headlights, like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
carbon, like in, global warming,
The thing,
I mean, they don't, they have, I mean, the idea that phrase and then BCC, which of course is blind
blind
carbon
carbon
copy.
copy. Yeah.
And so then you slowly explain to them that once upon a time there were typewriters. Okay. And then you
Yeah.
see if are they going to go typewriter or are they seen enough movies that they can go typewriter with their fingers,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, with keys. And you go through the whole, I'm not going to do it on the show, but they go through the whole routine
Well,
of how it got there.
well, it,
Maybe I should do it for the show because everybody watching the show is not
well,
going to know what a carbon copy is. They're all going, well, tell us. You tell
well,
them.
I think for legacy purposes, um, I think it's important. It's like, you know, okay, hey kids, if you're watching this, um, the thing about this is, if you explain, and I've had this happen a few times with my son. He's just about to turn 9, and I explain certain things to him as I'm about to explain this. So I grew up in a typewriter household. My mom used to be a secretary, and I was very familiar with um, essentially a sheet of paper put into the typewriter, another sheet of paper put behind that sheet of paper, and then in between those two, you have a black sheet of what we call carbon paper. And as you type on the top sheet, it hits through and it impresses what you're typing onto the back sheet. So you get two
Maybe you
copies.
need to add a little as the hammer comes up with the key to
Yeah.
hit the rolled paper on a roller. Okay. It hits a ribbon
Yes.
that's running
Correct.
in front of it that has ink on
Hmm.
it. And that's spinning around. Every time you hit a key, it moves a little further because you're using
Yep.
ink, right? And you bang it. That puts the original copy has now ink on it.
Hmm.
And then behind that, the same key is hitting the quote carbon paper, which is a sheet of black carbon,
Correct. Yeah.
and it hits the second sheet of paper, making a slightly less precise version of the first one because the carbon would be a little thicker and blurrier than the original crisp
Yes.
copy. And that would be, and if you were really uh, had a quality typewriter and a firm finger hit, because this was all manual back then, there was no
Hmm.
electric going bang.
Yeah.
Um, you could stick a second carbon sheet behind there and a third sheet of paper, and there's your blind carbon copy.
Oh,
So you can have both. You could have all three at one time. You didn't have to, you know. There was a third. It was not a common usage because that last one was not a. You had to know what it said practically, but no,
you're going advanced level CC and BCC. What I
I
will say is it was also a way. I tell you, the kids today, they don't know how good they have it. When you would make a mistake, when you make a mistake and you've
Oh,
got right.
you mean you got out?
So
You find out if you really own a razor.
Yeah, right. And then we used to here they call it whiteout. At home it was called Tipex. Tipex was just the brand. And now you've made an error. You've realized you've made an error. You need to go back, Tipex that out,
You have to
wait for it
unroll
to
the roll to get at it.
dry, and then roll it back in and try and get precise. And once it's dry, then you can start typing over it again. Yeah, and like
See,
it's
you advanced science like 5 levels with that. See, this is the in the old days. Okay, this is where the razor you didn't even know about. So what you did on the carbon copy, you would
yeah,
take a straight edge razor, the blade from the
yeah,
straight edge
okay.
razor, and you would
Like the
scrape
ones that
off the carbon. You could actually scrape it slowly off the sheet of paper
I had no idea.
without cutting the paper, which was like miraculous. Okay, and you could scrape it off and then
I had no
go
idea.
back and then and hit it again. But that took years of practice so that you didn't put a hole in the paper. Because if you'd
Yeah,
scraped a little too much, the paper would gone. And now
yeah.
it's a mess.
Well, this also makes me think back in the days, like when there was secretaries and the like. It as my mom was, and my aunt worked at a doctor's office in a similar role, and it was always about words per minute, right? Like
Hmm.
that was kind of the standard. And over time, I think maybe they still do it in school. I'm not too sure, but we've kind of lost that. But I wonder, with all of the abbreviations and everything else, I wonder what the average words per minute of an average teenager today would be with just
Pretty
thumbs on the
fast.
device.
I'm thinking they're fast.
Do you think I mean, it has to be faster than
Oh, definitely.
typewriters, obviously, but
Well, so this leads to another. I don't know if anybody cares about this. We're now doing the history of typing. Is that the name of the
I,
show? Are we going to get any audience for this? But anyway,
this was
so
our topic. This was
you
our
have
agreed upon topic for today, right?
yeah, apparently the in front of you on your laptop. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
a name. I forget what it's called. Letters in that order.
QWERTY,
Is that what it is, QWERTY? Okay. Do
QWERTY
you know
keyboard, yeah.
why? Do you know why it's that?
Why it's
Why
in
it's
this
organized
order?
like this? Yeah.
I do not actually. I do not.
See, there you go. Lesson
I
to lesson.
probably should,
So
but
this is
I'm
right there with carbon copy. All right.
okay.
So remember the bang, bang, bang keys.
Yeah,
These you gotta for those of you who haven't seen an old movie and don't know what a typewriter is, this is not going to work. Okay. But if you've seen that, you'll understand that the keys used to pop up and hit the screen. So it
right.
turned out that people like your mother, secretaries, when they first came out with typewriters, got really fast. And the problem with being really fast is the keys would jam. You would try to get the keys, your fingers were going faster
Yeah.
than the keys would
Mm-hmm.
drop back. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't, the
Mm-hmm.
springs on the keys, so the keys were actually on springs to spring them back to get them
Yeah.
away. They didn't just use gravity to have them fall back. They would spring up.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
But
yeah.
you would get going so fast that the keys would jam. So they arranged the keyboard in a fashion to slow down how fast people could type. So the keys wouldn't jam.
No way.
So this keyboard was set up, and they've never changed it. This keyboard was set up for humans
Oh,
to type slower.
if they changed it now, I would be so screwed. Let me ask you this. So when you're typing, when you're on your keyboard, so I'm a pretty fast typer. And
I'm not.
I can type really fast. But like I think that the classically trained typists, they have their ASDF and their HJKL or JKL colon semicolon. I tend to, I don't know, I have this weird fashion where I kind of have my own movements on the keyboard. Like I can get around super, super fast. Um, but I just, I'm not hunting and pecking necessarily, but I'm not like a classic uh typist necessarily. But the other thing too is when I'm in meetings, because I tend to um I'm not necessarily an auditory learner. Like I'll hear things, but I kind of need to review things afterwards. As people are talking in meetings, I'm like a court stenographer. I'm like typing, and and
Yeah.
then GP said this, and then we did this, and then and it's always for reference after. But even that is going away now that we've got AI and stuff. It's kind of taking all the notes for you,
Yeah. Just
Um,
ask it for a
yeah,
summary, and it gives you the summary and who said what and who promised what. And did I promise anything? No, you
yeah.
did it nice. You did
I'm in,
perfectly.
I'm
You
in, I'm
avoided
in the
promising
clear.
once
I'm in the
again. You're,
clear. Yeah.
yeah, that's 8 meetings in a row in which you managed to escape promising anyone anything.
We're going for the record. We're
Yeah,
going for the
pretty
record.
much. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. You're number two in the division for
yeah.
you know, but we're counting on you next week. So,
In my time, and it
do
was
you see how
mostly,
we can make? By the way, just to slow down, that
mm,
is a happiness um, thing that people I think can learn from what we just did there. Just and I know we kind of did it naturally, but it is something I think you can get your mind to do, which is take something that is somewhat does not sound like any fun at all, which is a Zoom meeting in which you're taking notes. I mean,
mhm.
this we're now down at a. Does that really sound like something? I mean, I'm sure there's some percentage of people for whom that's fun. I'm not in that percentage. Okay,
Yeah,
and slowly but surely, uh, between the two of us talking, we created a game of avoiding you know, actually having to have any responsibility post meeting, like we didn't promise anything.
yeah.
And then we stepped it up another level and created a leaderboard, how many in a row, and simply, if you were in a company um, that for whom this was true, you could almost create that.
Well,
And and
yes, you
and
can.
and it kind of it's a subtext. It's not part of the company, but this is what not just companies or even households, is making something and generally a game out of it. Gamification is this great word that people dreamed up, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's making fun where there is no fun.
Oh, well, I have a
And
story about
that
that.
and fun is a form of happiness. I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with fun. Go for it.
It is, it is. Um, I was watching my kids yesterday, and it was my kid's birthday, and he got a bunch of different presents, and one was like this brilliant book called The Tickle Monster, and it comes with these monster gloves so you can reenact the game and do that
The
kind of
tickle
stuff.
monster?
The Tickle Monster, yeah,
There's
yeah,
actually I gotta do a segue. I invented the tickle monster in my family with my grandchildren, and I didn't realize anyone had ever actually made some, financial, or helpful. And so
this
my
thing is
family
so
thing, the
cool.
tickle monster has, because they sometimes they run because they want to be tickled, and sometimes they don't want to. And so then I create I to find out what mood they're in, because if you just tickle them and they're not really, then you get the grandpa. So I can't just randomly tickle them too often.
Hmm.
So when I'm wondering what mood they're in, I go, you're getting a little close to the tickle zone. So the tickle monster has a tickle zone, and then I find out verbally, okay, whether they're in the I want to play the tickle monster game or no, I don't want to play the.
So that's your litmus test is,
I go with a verbal
yeah.
because especially as they get a little bit like the 9-year-old, she's not quite, tickle zone has dropped a little bit in her enthusiasm. So I want to be a little more, cautious of overdoing it. Anyway, so you got tickle monster gloves.
Right. So and it's going back to fun. My youngest, he's 3. He got a bunch of different presents, and so suddenly the Tickle Monster book is brilliant. It comes like in a box with the book and the gloves. It's super well presented and very well done. So suddenly he's playing with this like remote control car with his brother, and the brother has the gloves on, and then they're swapping back and forth the car and the gloves, and they've combined the two into a game of catching the remote control car wearing the
Tickle
monster
monster.
gloves. You know, so it, I was watching it, and I took a step back at how kids just naturally invent their own happiness in many ways and invent their own fun
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Cardboard box.
It we you know I had some Amazon deliveries the other day, and suddenly we're making forts with the cardboard box and the couch and everything else, and it becomes the simplest and almost purest type of fun and happiness. And for my kid, I had just played a soccer match over 45s. I was hurting, right? I have no business being on a soccer field at this age, but I still go out there like I'm 20.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's
Hey,
like,
hey,
get
I still got it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He says, come on, Dad, get in the fort, and I'm going, buddy, and he's like, come on, Dad. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna crawl down and we're gonna get in the fort. And it meant the world to him that just Dad was cooped up with him in this tiny little fort. And that's where the magic was. That's where a lot of the happiness was. And then I was so much more happy having done that as opposed to, oh, Dad's too sore. And
Yeah.
you just and especially for the kids and the
Well, but
grandkids.
no, I'll drop back, especially for you. This is uh so
Yeah, that's
one of
true.
the reasons I'm GP, okay, which by the way, once again stands for general partner, not grandpa. I just want the grandkids kind of you can watch this when they relate to adults. The adults who get on the floor, and literally,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not saying, mentally get on the floor. I mean, physically
yeah.
get down there on the
Hmm.
floor with the kids, not reach down.
Yeah.
Physically get, as hard as it is for the old people to get up, get down on the floor. The kids relate better to adults who go to the floor once the adults back up standing. That there is, I mean, you
Hmm.
can see all the time. I see the relationship they have with like a couple of the grandmother here that is maybe I'll just call it more traditional adult.
Yeah.
We don't get on the floor anymore, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a get on the floor kind of,
Yeah.
and so that's one story you bring up, and one recommendation I would make to anybody with kids who are short because kids are short
Yeah.
is get down at their level. Get down at their level for good news, get down at their level for bad news, get down at the level to play. I get on the floor. When I go to a grandkid's bedroom, they say, come on, let me show you something. I come in, I don't sit on the bed.
Hmm.
I sit
Yeah.
on the floor.
My mom used to say the same thing. And as a grandparent too, um, she used to just say, and my dad used to do this. My dad and my uncles, they were always on the floor with us, always on the floor, and it was always so engaging. And just even yesterday, my wife and my 3-year-old, they're laying on their stomachs, and they're just pushing a car back and forth, just simple,
Yeah, it doesn't
and they're
matter what you
having
do. It's,
and they're having the best time. And it's just I think so much of it too, especially in this day and age, is when you get on the floor with them, it's very much in the be here now. I'm with you, as opposed to
oh yeah,
yeah, that kind of a thing. It's
yeah,
this
yeah.
this is one of the greatest.
It's hard to be on your smartphone when you're lying on the floor on your
Yeah,
stomach.
yeah,
It's very uncomfortable. It's in
it
your
is.
pocket. You can't even get to it, kind of thing.
I know, but it's one of the greatest inventions of our time, and yet in some respects, what's the word? It's one of the greatest. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
Well, detriments, but I don't know. You can.
yes, there you go. It's one of it has so many upsides and so many downsides. But I think particularly with children, um,
Yeah.
putting away the phone and just being there in the moment.
I,
I've been guilty
but
of.
it's what I want my spouse to do. Is put away
Yeah,
her phone and be with me. Maybe
yeah,
I'm just a little kid at heart. Well, that's true too. But yeah, we all want it, total attention.
Yeah, I think
especially
so.
kids. I think you're right,
Yeah.
especially kids.
And
But
especially kids, attention is their currency in many ways, and that
yeah.
can attention can be earned or uh, gathered with good behavior and fun, but sometimes bad behavior. Sometimes they're just going to throw a complete
Oh,
strap to try and be
that's
like,
how
"Hey, I'm
that's
here,"
why we
you
have
know?
therapists.
Yeah,
Yeah, because bad behavior of kids trying to get attention. I mean,
yeah,
there's 7,000, in the neighborhood, the therapists who specialize in bad behavior kids, I'm sure,
yeah, absolutely.
and a lot of it, you're totally right. It's just they're trying to get attention,
Yeah,
trying to get, and the two people I want attention from are mom and dad.
yeah, yeah,
Number
yeah,
one and two until mom and dad screw it up, and then they want the attention of some jerk who's leading them down the wrong path at school.
yeah,
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 that's what
yeah,
happens when mom and dad fail. Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
You know,
they'll
it's
pick somebody, they'll pick anybody.
do you have where you are, do you have the e-bike kids, the marauding gangs of e-bike kids around your neighborhood?
I I live on a hill, so I don't know. They
Um,
don't come up our hill.
they don't, yeah, well, they don't come up there, but like around
I
like around
don't
the
see
town
them.
and stuff.
No, I haven't
Yeah.
seen them.
We
No.
have them. We have them here, and I'm cognizant of the fact that I was a teenager too. You know, um, it always amazed me when I moved to California how about the different modes of transport, that a skateboard was a legitimate mode of
Oh
transport
yeah.
for people. It wasn't, you
And
know.
the hoverboard.
Yeah,
Oh,
still to come, still to come.
it's just a little bit short of meeting expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but e-bikes now, especially in Orange County, they're all the rage, and um you've got the majority of kids are great, they use them, get to school, all that kind of stuff. But there's an element in where we are where you get these uh mini gangs of kids, four, five, six kids, and they'll take up the three lanes of either side of the road, and they'll do um they'll pop wheelies and stuff like that, and it's all fun, but there's safety issues. Their helmets aren't buckled, and it, as I said, I have this issue with it in terms of more kind of within myself, really. As I said, I was a teenager too. They're just having fun. They're just doing their wheelies and all that kind of stuff. But then the older part of me is like, hey, what you're doing is not safe, and can you please move over to the side so the cars can get through? You know what I mean? It's this weird thing. And then of course there's the other element where they're like flipping you off and stuff like that, and I'm like, that's not necessary. But it kind of goes back to your point about parenting, and quote unquote failure about parenting, right? Because one of them did that the other day, and I said to my son, I said, if I ever catch you doing that, and I just left it there.
Yeah.
I did
Hey,
the
hey,
I just did
the
the
nodding head,
parental, like,
you dream up the worst thing I could do to you, and yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
just gonna leave it open ended,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
but I don't know where I got
Drifted
with that.
into.
Yeah,
Well, I had one comment that is now going to be off point, but not totally. That I wanted to bring up because as fun as it is to talk about uh, kids having fun, and I think parents having fun is a great conversation for us. There was another thing that you led into, which goes back to something I think the audience probably does a lot of, and that's work and
yeah,
trying to
of
create fun
course.
at work. And so you reminded me
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
of a company that I uh, was running, where we had quite a number of employees in a big office kind of space, and uh, I'd like to have a free flowing kind of place. So it was pretty open as
yeah,
to policies. There weren't a lot of that. Not
yeah.
a lot of structure, but this was office. This was not a factory floor. This was cubicles, the low
Yes,
rise cubicles. Everybody had, either that or you were at a long desk, but most people had a little cubicle.
yeah,
And so, like you, we were getting deliveries. It was growing pretty fast, and we were
Right.
buying uh, computers and desks and all kinds of, and the boxes would show up, full of
Yeah.
this stuff in the lobby, and of course then we'd wait for the boxes to be empty. And we let people kind of customize their, trying to make their cubicle into home, right?
Yeah.
So one morning, came into the office, and one of the more adventuresome or whatever creative people had taken the boxes from the
Yeah.
night before, had taken them to their cubicle, and they built a a house out of the cardboard boxes.
They
Okay,
covered in they covered in the whole
they put a
cubicle.
roof. They had I mean, they were totally enclosed with a door and window. Okay,
No.
no, not glass, but opening for a
Yeah,
window,
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
and with a sign, and I think it was like, I'm going to make up a name, Elvin's house, or something. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a he,
That's brilliant.
and he had lights, like Christmas lights, string lights on a string, so that he could light it up, um, and that started a competition, of course, of how to
Oh,
decorate your cube. Not all houses, but just somebody brought in a 15-foot high. This had a high ceiling, 15-foot high palm tree, and put it in their cube. Okay, for the for they wanted the Southern California beach scene,
yeah,
and
yeah,
not everybody, it wasn't like required. It was maybe every fourth or fifth person who went over the top. I mean, everybody kind of does something to that put a picture of their dog. I don't know,
yeah.
but and it became fun to see what somebody might do. The
And
fun,
so,
and so you took just the stupid cube was suddenly a fun cube. These are all, and
yeah,
people would do stuff inside. They put up the boards. A lot of them put up the boards for privacy, which was fine.
yeah.
And then they would put something inside, and then you want to see what's in George's. I mean, kind of thing, And it was
What
very social. Go ahead.
what I love about that is just how contagious fun can be, and
Yes.
how contagious it can be, how contagious happiness can be, um, and the spark of one person to do that led to this whole thing. Now, within the company, did you um did you try to push it, or did it just grow organically, or how did that work?
That grew organically, that particular thing. What what I said kind of earlier was, fun is very important to me. Happiness
Yeah,
is important, and fun is like a stand-in at work. Uh, Fun uh, and happiness kind of overlap a little bit.
yeah,
It's hard to have fun when you're not happy.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
so um, in that particular company, which I said, that location got to be about, I don't know, 400 or 500 people.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it was a good sized eventually, and the lobby as you walked in, it was a ground floor, single story building,
Hmm.
um, uh, and that many people, it was quite a large building, but it was single story. And when you walked in our lobby, you had to get by the two foosball tables and a ping pong table to get to the reception desk. And
Oh, so that's
and
what
it was
that's what you
there
led
was
with.
never and it was you had to be like the first person to show up at work to go by with it not being played on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then just on a corner of I'm remembering this, on the corner of the lobby, there was a rack of surfboards, because we had a surf team, which was ad hoc. They just made it up. But we challenged Yahoo, because Yahoo was not too far away from our offices. Somehow somebody in the company knew somebody that worked at Yahoo, and they apparently had a bunch of surfers. So they challenged him for a surf contest, which got to be this really interesting story, because we had a bunch of visiting venture capitalists from Sweden one time, and
Yeah.
they arrived on a day where the next morning they were going to go, we were going to have a little surf competition against somebody. So they woke all these venture capitalists up at like 5 in the morning to drag them out to the ocean. Okay, Half Moon Bay. They drove them all, out to the ocean, and they all went. And these guys, of course, never been on a surfboard, and
Oh my gosh.
and so they killed themselves. I mean, they came in again. One guy had, blood on his shin. I mean, they were, yeah. So
That's
what I was
brilliant.
saying is there were
Love
formal
that.
there were there were things we did like making room for ping pong tables in the lobby. This wasn't around the corner down in an area out of the way, and
Yeah.
the idea was to make sure everybody understood that it's really important to the company that you're having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have it back then, but I've had it on in companies since where I talked to my operating partner and would say something like, they would be like, "We have a vision and a mission." And I said, "Well, one of the things I want as a mission is kind of tell the employees that if you're working at a job and after like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're not having any fun, and I mean fun.
Hmm.
If this
Yeah.
is not fun, go talk to your boss. Something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't. I know, and sometimes I did this years ago, so I've told this story many times, or several times anyway. And I would get reactions from people like, from business guys going,
Yeah.
no, this
Yeah.
isn't, no, 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 no. There's lots of jobs that aren't fun. And
Yeah.
I'm back to your kids, the guy with the cubicle, the guy collecting, the plumber. I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, it's one of the things. I had a really good person that I first went into business with. Well, I went into business with Billie Jean King and her husband Larry King. And
Okay. Yeah.
It's Larry King I'm talking about because he and I would be in the office. He had a law degree, and so we were in the office, and Larry would dream of all these fun things. And so one time I was talking to Billie Jean about Larry having fun, and she said,
Yeah.
"Oh, let me tell you about Larry." She said, "You could lock Larry in a 10 by 10 cell with a pile of horse crap, okay, in the middle of it, okay,
Yeah.
horse
Yeah.
manure in the middle of it, with a shovel."
Yeah.
And Larry would have invented a game by himself within 10 minutes. Like, how fast could he have equal piles in the four corners? How many seconds? And he would dream. She actually said that one. And
That's
and
hilarious.
the idea was Larry having fun. As I say, I learned this very early in my career that um, it's something you just can figure out how to do.
Yeah.
It's not the kids you were talking about. The kids, they got the gloves and the car, and they made a game. They made a
Yeah.
game out of that wasn't intended by the makers of those items. They had other games in mind, but they
Yeah.
created their own fun. And you can that doesn't necessarily you don't have to be 7 to do that. You can be
Yeah.
70. You can be 70 and still invent games of fun
Yeah.
from nowhere. There's
Yeah.
no and not every opportunity, not 100% of the time, but I'm going to say in the 90s. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get strange looks from people when I make my off the hand comments. I usually have to preface it because most people don't see the fun in just, walking around. I mean,
Yeah.
like I, I'll have, so I was trying to calculate the other day. I live on a hill, so I'm climbing stairs a lot. And I look at my default app on my that Apple gave me
Yeah.
for health. And I can tell you, it says that it counts all the stairs you do. It doesn't count them all. There's something wrong with that thing. So I was trying to figure out, as a game, how high up do I have to do to get to right? Because I do a flight of stairs and I go back down the stairs and do another one. I'll count three. They've got one. And I go, what happened to the other two? I went up and down. I mean, I'm not expecting them to count the down, just the up. It's okay with me that,
Yeah.
climbing the stairs is the only thing they count. What goes up must come down. So I figure that I'm okay with that. Um, so I started to go up the stairs and then go around the corner and go up three more stairs on the next flight and then come back down and see if it gave me qual. I mean, how does it how does it not give me these?
So
So I was
is it,
trying to make a game out of that. I haven't figured out a game yet, but I was working at it.
so you were gamifying the calibration of the health app on your phone,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially.
yeah. And I seeing the humor in things, which is not a game, but it's the same happiness thing. You were talking, and I'm not even sure what it was, and it's sort of like, well, it's the keyboard. The humor in the keyboard is
Yeah.
is we have a keyboard designed to slow you down. And now that it's been, and the electric typewriter, which had well, first of all, they had electric keys, which used to jam, but then they had the ball.
The ball, yeah,
IBM
yeah, yeah.
invented the ball, and the ball you could
My,
go almost as fast as you.
yeah.
I mean, you could bang, 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 bang. That thing would just go instantly with you. So we no longer had a speed problem. I think it was called a Selectric, or it had a cute name. I'm thinking that's the 60s, maybe. So we're talking 60 years ago,
Hmm.
and we've never fixed the keyboard. They never said, "Oh, we can speed it up again and let people type faster. Let's find the natural word combination." Because the way these letters are designed, it's, the A is way over there with your little
Yeah.
finger way
Well,
over on the left-hand side. I mean, that's like the most common A and E. And
it,
they don't have them in the index fingers, which are the ones your brain can do the
yeah.
fastest. They have like H and J. I mean, who
It,
uses a J? Nah, nobody's. It's the
it's
least.
it's
It's
an
right up there with
interesting
that.
one. I know it's an interesting one, and you learn a lot about the letters too, and where they come into play. If you've ever played Scrabble, I used to play Scrabble with my mom a lot, and if you can get an X, a Z, or a Q in there, that was going to be, and if you can get that on a triple, you're
Oh
talking
yeah,
30, 40 points right there.
yeah.
Um, yeah, like I grew up. I actually I have a love for old typewriters. If I could fill my house up with them, I probably would. You may even have one there.
I have one that's in the other room. I have two
Yeah.
things that I got them as gifts. I didn't actually have. I know this is a podcast, so this isn't going to work with the podcast crowd, but those of you who are watching this,
Oh,
oh,
an
okay,
old rotary
of
phone.
old rotary phone.
That is a beautiful piece. So that was a gift.
That somebody, yeah, I think one of my kids. They gave me.
That's a
They're
great gift.
they're they're constantly teasing me about old guy as opposed to GP. It's OG, but whatever.
OG. Well,
Nobody uses
OG,
that. No, no, no. Can't.
OG. No, no,
I'm
no.
not calling.
OG also stands for original gangsta.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
realize that you got to give these multiple uses. There's no.
yeah, yeah.
Speaking of multiple uses, something there's copyrights, and we do the show, and of course it's automatically copyrighted by somebody. Um, Two things that always amaze me have no copyright, and that is titles of books and titles of movies. So if you want to call your next movie Gone with the Wind, go for it.
Really.
Yeah,
So I can create a movie called Star Wars and
absolutely. Now, you can't copy Star Wars. You can't copy the idea. You can't do the plots. You can't use anything that Star Wars used. But if you want to call your your scientific book about two stars in the universe colliding,
right.
and you call that Star Wars, you probably get away with that. I mean, Star Wars is a classic because they have enormous amounts of copyright and trademarks.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
so you'd have trouble picking a T-shirt with it on or any. I mean, they got you coming and going. But titles of books, movies, song titles, same thing.
It's interesting. There was a band that I really liked, and I was going to go see them in concert, and I decided to create a shirt, um, and it was using the lyrics from one of their songs, but I made it into like an eye chart, like you would get at the optometrists.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just had some fun with it, and so I went I built the design and everything in Photoshop, and then I went to one of the printing companies and sent it over. And they were a relatively unknown UK band at the time. They're a lot bigger now. The band is called Idols, by the way. You should check them out. They're pretty fantastic.
You're
Um,
promoting them now. Okay,
yeah, yeah. I'm
that's all
giving
right. They're
them
on
a shout on our
Spotify.
yeah,
Okay,
giving them a shout on
all right. We're done
our
promoting.
wide
New
audience
sponsor.
podcast. So the printing company came back and they said it looks like these are song lyrics and you can't use them. They're copyrighted.
Right.
And I was like, it's a t-shirt for me. Like I'm not distributing these. It's an order of one t-shirt for me. It was really cool. It was like one of the baseball
Yeah.
t-shirts.
As a matter of fact,
And
the
I
more they wouldn't give it to you, the cooler the shirt is.
so eventually I think I had to do something like I had to change one of the words or add an extra full stop slash
Whatever.
period in there, something
Enough.
like that to get it to go. But I wanted to go back actually to fun, fun and happiness in the workplace, um and and just workplace culture in general, and how that can happen. Because I think workplace culture happens organically, and you can influence it potentially. Like you can put the foosball tables and the ping pong tables and everything to encourage fun and bonding and relationships and that kind of thing. And then some of it will just happen organically. But I worked at a place where we talk about the gamification. We had we used to be in these meetings, like these big 30 people meetings, that would just go on and on and on. And a lot of the meetings that you got sucked into may or may not have been relevant to you. So you're just sitting there and suffering through it. But as can be the case in corporate, there's a lot of buzzwords and jargon that happen.
Yes.
So my buddy and I, in the back of our notebooks, we would do buzzword bingo. So we would have like win-win, lockstep, synergy, all that kind of stuff
All of them.
in
Yeah.
the back of the notebook. And so you're sitting in this meeting that it was a complete draw, horrible to try and get through, not relevant, but you were pulled in as part of the team or whatever. And then somebody would say something, and you just look up at your buddy across the thing, and you just see him
Marking
strike
it.
through, mark it down.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then after the meeting, we would say, "How'd you do? How'd you do?" And it was just introducing that little bit of fun
It's
in the
it,
workplace. It
yeah,
was
so yes, and I think the way you've said it is better than what I was going to say, which is no matter where you are in the organization, you can create fun.
absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and so you just and that particular fun was um say off the books. It wasn't
hmm
wasn't made it corporately,
yeah,
but I do occasionally have taught at the Stanford Business School, and I teach entrepreneurial to the kids that think they're going to start something.
yeah,
And one of the things that I tell them, which is more of a startup thing than an old corporate thing, which is
yeah.
the most important person to a culture is the CEO by far. I
Right,
mean, second
right,
place is really it's if only if the CEO is a non-entity, do the other people have a lot? The second thing in startups, in culture, are the original the first employees, which may also be co-founders and whatever, and
right.
and um, and then it's the older employees that the culture. What happens in a culture is you build one, yeah, and you can build it on purpose because I've done this, so it's not
Yeah.
like it doesn't. Or I get the organic part after the
hmm
base culture is there, and then people
Yeah,
try to
yeah,
build around it. But what happens is when you build a certain culture, the ping pong table and the foosball, there are certain people who come into that lobby and go, I this is chaotic. I would never work here. So
right.
even if they take the job, okay,
Yeah, okay.
they didn't really know, and then when they come in and they realize this is the culture, those weren't
Yeah,
fake. Though that's actually what's going on in this company is we're having a blast. We're
yeah,
working hard, but we're having a wonderfully just a
exactly. Yeah,
lot of fun,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that uh, spits them out. So the culture can stay very strong. At a certain,
Okay.
I don't know how big. I never had one where we got when I was running them 5,000 people, maybe be my biggest company. So these things that are 50,000, 100,000, although Salesforce Benioff, um, whose name I now forgotten the first name. What's Benioff's first name? Anyway,
Mark,
he was the founder and he's still running it. Pardon?
Mark,
Remember what was his first name?
Mark.
Mark Benioff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Said it. It's such a short name. I missed it. I don't know why. Anyway, he still does some of the things, culture things, which are I think they have 100,000 employees, and he
Really?
still does the all hands meeting around the world in a Zoom, and he
Yeah.
still does what I did this one time. Anyway, I had it as a cultural thing where he does this and takes any question. So, in a startup information, these startups grow, when they're little, everybody knows
Yeah.
everything. And then as you slowly expand, have one day the venture capitalists came in, like their first visit to our little office. We had like 20 employees, and they brought pizza. Okay. They were just fun. They were a couple of nice guys, and they brought
Yeah.
pizza
Yeah.
in for everybody, and we had a meeting with the venture capital, and they got to meet, the team, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Well, there was like 20, 25 of us. Um, and then and it was good because we were updating them, and then everybody else got updated because we were updating them.
Yeah.
So that grew into every 2 week free lunch meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Which the CFO, when we got to quite size, he said, we're spending $6,000, $7,000 on lunch every 2 weeks. And I, like, shut up,
Yeah.
get over it. Okay. But
Yeah.
things, people coming on time to these, because before you got your food, there would be the update. And
Okay.
lots of stories I could tell you about the updates, but eventually they had to build a stage so I could get up on a stage with a microphone because you couldn't see me because there was, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And so people would wander in late. Okay. And I always
Okay.
thought, people, I was on time. Okay. Well, that's a difference. We're not going to go to the on time story, but later. I was on time because that's my nature. And I'd see the other people on time, or I'd even get there a couple minutes early, and I'd see people coming in early. And other than being in the front, which is not necessarily a good spot to be,
Yeah.
what benefit to coming early? Okay. So I invented, I don't know, I guess I invented the money game. I didn't have a name for it. Let's just give it a name, money game. So I would tell everybody, okay, reach into your wallet, pull out a because back when people had money, reach in
Right.
your
Yeah.
wallets, okay.
Yeah.
Reach in your wallet and pull out a $1 bill, okay, or
Yeah.
borrow one from someone else. You can borrow one.
Right.
You don't have to have your own. And then I would take out a 20, and eventually it got to be 100, okay. And
Right.
I'd take out a 20, and I'd say, okay, here's my serial number, okay. So
So you're
if you,
reading the serial number off the bill?
I'd start reading. It's L. If your serial number on your $1 bill had the following digits, like my 20, the last person to have all of them got the money. And I would
What a cool
do
game.
4 or 5 20s before the meeting started. So if you got there early, you had a chance for a $20. And then when the crowd was small, it was not that, it's like 10
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
want. So it was a game, and no matter when you showed up, you knew the game, and you had to wait for the next 20 because midway through you can't suddenly,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
that uh, gamification of the waiting for a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
which I'm sure many Disney created gamifying waiting in line.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is some, oh my God, I can't believe you dreamed that up. No, no, no. This is happening
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
over the place. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're running something, okay, whether it be a small group or a bigger, this is part of what you want to do. These Zoom meetings, I told you the other day, we have the travel company, which I still help, has Zoom calls. And once a
Right.
week, um, it's hard to end a Zoom call because
Yeah.
everybody says goodbye. This is one of
Of
these,
course. Yeah.
how do you? So I think I told you the other day, I get a hat. I have these old caps, like you have a cap on, right?
Yep.
Which we ought to talk about, but that's it. And I get my cap and I tell the cap story. I said, and so to close the meeting, I'm generally the one I got nominated to be the one to close it, to figure out how to close it. So I go, has anybody got any more topics to go? Because I'm reaching for my hat for the hat story. Okay. And that
Yeah.
gives them time while I have the hat and I start telling the story. Occasionally somebody goes, oh, by the way, I have one more thing because it stalled the ending, which is Zoom. When you only have these one a week thing, you kind of want to give
Yeah.
people time to, oh my God, I got my note. Da, da, da. Otherwise, you're so busy waving goodbye. It's like,
Yeah.
so I made a game out of the ending. Okay. It's fun. I don't know if it's a game. It's more just fun
Yeah.
because they pick on me for the hat. Why do you have something? It's like the other day, somebody said, where do you keep all these hats? I said, they're in a pile. Don't worry about it. But this this is this fun at work topic.
Yeah.
It's ripe for people having fun.
I th
It
I th
just
I, th I think so. I mean, some of the best places that I've worked, we of course worked really, really hard and accomplished some great things, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And especially in startups and such, there's nights where um you're leaving at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, you're coming back in for 6 or 7 sometimes. Um, and but you're with the team, everybody's pushing really, really hard to try and meet that deadline to get things delivered. But without fun, it just wouldn't be possible,
no,
you know? Yeah.
no. You it's a good. I mean, sometimes there is no fun in these places, but it's really that it's.
Well,
Boy, talk
and
about it. It's
and
all people.
yeah,
Literally this is there is no piece of software that creates the fun at work. Maybe
yeah.
we should. That's your next venture. The fun software.
Let's not broadcast it. But I think the opposite is I've worked in places where there was no fun and it was actually quite bloodthirsty and toxic, and I was miserable. I was
Well,
absolutely miserable, and I didn't do my best work as a
I'm
result. I'll freely admit, you know. But I want to touch base with you real quick on one thing. We were texting back and forth. You and I were texting back and forth a little bit last week before the show, and you mentioned something about standing in line at Walgreens, and you just left it there, and we didn't get to talk about it. So I wanted to talk to you about that, and just we
my
can flesh
line.
out on
Well,
that.
it goes with the earlier parts of this conversation. So I could go way back and say you should know what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy. But I'm just going to go to waiting in line does not make me happy. And I'm sure there's lots of other people who will join me in that sentiment. But and I'm at the sort of the bleeding edge, as you might say, of unhappiness in a line. I can get unhappy I get unhappy seeing the line. It's a matter, if I go to the grocery
just
store
just
and I
seeing a
see the
line.
line, if I see the line like at Trader Joe's or like any of these places, and I go, oh God, they're all full. What am I missing? I might go find something else to buy because I hate standing in line so much. I'd rather go find another catch
And hope it clears out.
and hope the line gets,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
I do that.
yeah.
I do that. Yeah,
All right. So you and
yeah.
I hate lines. And they used to just drive me nuts. And the grocery store lines aren't so long. They're pretty well managed them. Even when they're long, they're not. But Walgreens and CVS, I think is the same. They manage short line very long. I mean, if there's one person in front of you, it's a problem, and
Yep.
you multiply it. It goes 1 times 2 times 4. You get 4 people in line. That's 16 times chance because one of those 4 people is going to say, I'm having a problem with, and there you are,
Uh,
you're off script. If it's not, they should have a line that says, I'm ready to just pick up my prescription. I don't have any questions. I've got my credit cards on file. There's no issue with me. They don't have that line.
they
You get
they
in line
do
with the
now.
person who wants to talk about the fact that I thought I 22 in here.
Yeah,
God. Let me get the prescription out. See, it says 24. And that can go on for 20 minutes.
yeah. Especially at CVS. I've done that at CVS where I've walked in and the prescription line is long, and I've gone, maybe I'm with one of the little guys, and they're like, "Can we go look at the toys?" I'm like, "Yeah," and we'll go look at the toys, and we're looking at the toys, and I'll be keeping an eye over, and then when it starts to dwindle, I'm like, we have to go. We have to go
Yeah.
now. We have to go now,
Yeah.
um and especially in the pharmacies, because there's things about insurance, and there's
Oh, no,
consultations
no.
about medications and stuff like that, and it's very much like a huff and puff situation. And the other thing that I hate, for me, just in terms of pet hates with regards to the pharmacy, is you go there. um I go to pick up a prescription, and they give me the prescription, and I say, well, the doctor prescribed 30 for the month. Why is there only 15 or something? Well, that's your insurance. But
Right.
so now I have to go. I've been in line. I've
Yeah.
been in line. I've gone through, and now I have to go over here to the other line to talk to. But and it's different, right? If you talk about grocery store lines, Trader Joe's is actually quite good. And one of the things about Trader Joe's for me, just in terms of a brand, however they do their interviewing process and everything else, everybody at Trader Joe's is having the best day of their lives. And they're just like, "Hey, how are you? How to do?" And then they have the bell, right? So if their lines get maybe
Right.
three deep each or whatever, they ring the bell and people come running because they know people hate lines. If I go to Ralph's, they have a TV screen with number 3 or number 4 on there, showing how many checkout places are open, and it just makes me feel even so much more miserable because I'm like, there's you 4 things open. I see 3 people here. I'm. I came in because my kid just wants ice cream or I needed bread or whatever. It's just yeah, it's yeah, it's
I
so that
so
touches.
my solution to this, which I was heading to when you sent the, is I used to die in line. I mean, I by the time I got to the clerk, it was only my mother's training that got me from taking their head off, because it's not their fault. Okay.
Of
And I
course.
know it's not their
Yeah.
fault. I know the whole time it's, well, sometimes it is their fault because I look at how they're doing things and I go, oh my God. But it's not often their fault.
Yeah.
So you try that. But then they invented the smartphone. And we
Yes.
were talking earlier about the pluses and minuses. I will tell you that line waiting, okay, is one of the huge pluses to a smartphone. When I get to the Walgreens, okay, when I'm heading to the line, I'm pulling my phone out, okay,
Yeah.
because I don't know how long this line's going to be, but it's
Uh-huh.
long enough for me to check my email, send a message to somebody that I've not been messaging. If I want to go on social media, I can read, I can do, I mean, the whole
The
world
world
is
the
sitting
world
in
in your
my
pocket.
hand,
Hmm.
and I've got nothing, I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Because if I step out 4 feet out of line, I mean, they're going to crunch behind me. It's like, excuse me, sir, don't cut back in. You were out.
Yeah.
I wasn't out. I was just leaning. I was leaning over that way. I didn't step out because it's ruthless in that line.
Well,
But that
well, and
that phone has calmed my line waiting. It's not zero. I mean, I would prefer not to be in line,
mhm.
but I'm sure it's added 3, 6, 8 months to my lifespan because my tension my stress level has
Well,
been eliminated because of that device. So it is one of the pluses that I get.
it's definitely one of the pluses. Um, I think if we look at that plus and then also think about um, kids today, um, they don't they don't have um, they don't have those necessarily those moments of being bored because
Which is
they've
a
got the
plus and a minus.
right, they've got the world in their hand, right? So
So therefore, they're not using their imagination to make the world. I mean, it's a plus and
exactly.
a minus. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was talking about my young lads there making up their own game and combining games and stuff and just that imagination and stuff. Um, you know, at the same stage, it's a tremendous piece of technology and access to the internet and anything you ever wanted to know, and of course with AI and everything else. But yeah,
It, well, the thing is, with any kind of progress, technology, any of these devices, any of this, there's a lot of people trying to create things that actually help people. I mean,
yeah.
why does people buy a smartphone? Because spending the money on that has made your life better, in your
Hmm.
mind at least. Okay. So
Yeah.
as the AI increases, as the phone increases, the people inventing these they're not, most of them are not trying to invent something bad. They're actually trying to invent something helpful.
Yeah, of
So
course.
hopefully the helpful things outnumber the scammers and the jerks and, the criminal minds and which all exist in any progress, any device, the holes in it that didn't think about that, you didn't do this, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Hopefully the winners will slowly outdo the losers.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Paulie,
that's
I gotta go.
yes, sir. Yeah,
I ran
we're
out of
hitting that
time.
time.
I ran out of time.